everyone, and welcome to another episode of JJ Talks. My name is Jonah Carter, and I am once again here with my co-host Josh. How you doing?
You know what? I gotta be honest. Today was a pretty long day, but I'm happy to be home and be recording and talking some football with you.
Yes, it was a long day for me as well, and what a great way to end the day with us talking about our favorite division in football, the NFC South, the home of our beloved Atlanta Falcons and our also deeply hated rivals, the New Orleans Saints, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the Carolina Panthers. But before we get there, we do have some news to share. It's actually funny. This first news we want to talk about, it literally dropped minutes after we recorded our previous episode on the NFC East. And of course, it had to involve the NFC East. And we're talking about Brandon Brooks, the guard for the Philadelphia Eagles, tore his ACL, which is devastating news for all Eagles fans. Is there something you'd like to say about that injury and how you think that might affect them?
Well, if you had any high hopes for Miles Sanders going into the season, this definitely diminishes some of it. I don't think I might have to go back to my records and maybe adjust some things. Not too much. I still would have them winning the division overall, but this is a pretty big loss for them. Not gonna lie. We were pretty fortunate, recording whenever the Zeke news dropped with the coronavirus, and we were feeling pretty good with that. We're like, oh man, nice. We're happy to be recording right after this news. Fantastic. And then we just got hit with this as soon as we got done recording. So it all equaled out.
Yeah, in talking more about the injury, it really is disappointing because Brandon Brooks, when he does play, is all pro guard level. Some would say he's probably one of the best, if not the best guard in the NFL. And I think he plays like that. And I think the Eagles play a lot better when he is on the field. He has struggled with injuries in the past. So it's not exactly a shock to see him go down, but to see him go down in this manner, especially when we're all quarantined anyways, it's not like it happened during a training camp or anything. It's disappointing. You hate to see that happen to any player, but especially a guy of his caliber. I hope he has a speedy recovery, and hopefully the Eagles can have a next man up, mindset and be able
He
to
already
find
has
some
a
more
previous
wins.
torn ACL, doesn't he?
I believe so. I'm not entirely sure if it's the same one. I think it's a different one, but yeah. So he's had something like this before.
That's extremely unfortunate. Just to get one ACL tear is pretty bad, but you're just really unlucky if you get two.
Yeah. So again, hope he has a speedy recovery.
But on to
The
better news, the Madden cover got announced, and no surprise to everyone, is the MVP Lamar Jackson.
Yep, he had an interview, I should say, earlier in the offseason where he pretty much admitted that he was the cover for Madden. So, like you said, this is not a shock, but I think it is definitely deserving. Lamar had a fantastic year. I'm sure in the next Madden he is going to be absolutely ridiculous to use. So, good for him. Hopefully the Madden curse does not fall upon him. But congratulations to him for that achievement.
Was there really any competition other than CMC maybe?
Yeah, I think it was definitely Lamar's. I mean, if they go with the same route they go normally, where the top player in the league at that time gets the cover, I think it was easily Lamar.
Well, last but not least, we have some pretty important news, and not just for this season, but maybe for the future of the NFL itself. The We're facing the potential outcome that we might have a 2-week preseason, and coronavirus or not, I am more than welcome to have this into our league.
Yeah, I think it's a thing that teams and even some players would say that was a thing that was wanted and expected to happen anyways. And I think COVID-19 kind of just forced the hand a little bit. Um, but yeah, I'm okay with it. The only thing that I find a little more unfortunate and it's a thing that not many people truly care about. But these younger players, the rookies, the undrafted free agents, this is like their one chance in front of prime competition to be able to show their worth. And I think with only two preseason games, you're not going to be able to see them as much. Considering one of those games, you're going to be seeing the starters for the majority of the time. Normally, how you would see, the week 3 of preseason, you see the starters for probably around a half. You're probably going to use one of those games. So, I mean, it looks like these guys that are fighting for a roster spot, you're going to get probably around 6 quarters to prove yourself. And that's not much. So on their end, I feel bad for them because I know they're going to want the competition and be able to have the opportunity. But in a general sense, I think this is something that we were going toward, and I think it's fine. Most of the veteran players in the league don't play in preseason outside of one game, anyways. So for them, this is fine. It was expected, I think, going forward, anyways. So I'm all right with it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked if teams just eventually just go away with even having any starters there in the preseason. We've already seen some teams like the Rams didn't have any starters in the preseason, and whether or not they actually had an impact on their season, no one can really know. But if this did happen to where we go to a 2-week preseason, I can just see all teams not having any starters during their preseason run. So that way it gives the rookies 8 quarters to shine, really.
Yeah, I would expect maybe not all, but there's definitely going to be some starters I would think that would want to play just to at least dust off some of the cobwebs, especially the quarterbacks. If they're introducing new people into the offense, they want to just get their arm warm and just work in a couple kinks in the preseason. So even if it's like for one drive, I still think a decent amount of starters are going to play. But again, I could definitely see a bunch of teams, like you said, like the Rams did, just have no starters. For one, maybe they just don't think they need it, and two, that doesn't risk them in getting injured, which I think is the most important thing for preseason is to make sure you get out of there without any injuries. So it's fine.
I think this is one of the best things about the NFL is that unlike any of the other sports or leagues, they're more than welcome to introduce some kind of change or adjustment just considering other leagues, almost on a whim. Like if we're going with last year, the whole pass interference issue, it was a bad look, right? But if it was any other league, they wouldn't have even bothered with it, and uh, who knows what would have happened? It could have been good. We don't know, but the NFL is welcome to change and welcome to adjustments, and I think that was parts of what makes the NFL so great is that they're open to making their game better and they're willing to take those kind of chances. So even if this doesn't continue or who knows what happens, I think it's one of the best parts about the NFL itself and why it attracts to a lot of viewers. Unlike MLB or NBA who are just slow to really adjust to anything.
I will give the NFL, its credit to being able to implement new things. Every sports organization has their issues at times, but I think with the NFL, and the thing that I go toward is the NFL draft this past year. With COVID-19 going on, they had to make it entirely virtual, and I believe it was the most viewed NFL draft ever. And for those that watched, it went very well. It seemed that owners and GMs and coaches did not have really any technical difficulties. So, I applaud them for that and be able to make that work and, adjusting to that pretty much on the fly and giving people, and while everyone's was still super heavily quarantined at that time, giving them some sports to watch. So just things like that, I do think that they deserve credit for being able to make things happen when there's change needs to happen.
And they receive a lot of blowback from that too, but they powered through, did the draft, and it was a hit.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, that's it with the news. So let's go ahead and continue on. We're going to talk about the NFC South today. Starting off, we're going to go with the Saints, the previous division winners, and a lot of people are expecting that they'll do the same thing and repeat this year. One big signing is Jameis Winston, the maybe eventual successor to Drew Brees. Drew did sign a 2-year deal, $50 million, and Jameis is only on a 1-year deal, I guess, to maybe prove it to Sean, if not. But the Saints have a good plan of potentially passing on the torch from Drew Brees. And whether or not Jameis is it or not, it's a good start. He's young. He's only 26 years old. And maybe Sean can be the guy that hones him in so he's not throwing interceptions, left and right. I mean, he throws a lot of touchdowns. I could say that, right? Just a lot to both teams. Not really a whole lot more. They do sign Emmanuel Sanders to a 2-year deal. It's up to $19 million. They signed Ty Montgomery to a 1-year deal. Just really a backup signing, but Alvin Kamara was having injury issues last year, and Ty Montgomery is the kind of back that could take Alvin's spot in the case he does get injured again. Because Latavius Murray doesn't have that pass catching ability that Alvin does, but Ty can. And then we get to their draft. Not a whole lot. They only had 4 picks in this draft, but even then, they still did pretty well for themselves. They cut Larry Warford, their center, and they draft Cesar Ruiz as their number 1 overall pick. And later on in the draft, they have one of the steals, which is Zach Bond, the linebacker, just for some reason dropped him in the 3rd round. And whenever you have that kind of talent drop to you, you take him. Now in the 3rd round, they also had to take Adam Troutman, the tight end. So they already have Jared Cook, but he's getting kind of old now, and I don't believe they're going to keep him for much longer. So the Adam Troutman makes sense. And then they go a long time without having any more picks. They take a quarterback, Tommy Stevens, at the end. It doesn't really matter in the 7th round. So with that, I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, there's not much else I really have to say. They also signed Malcolm Jenkins in free agency from the Eagles, which I think is a very nice pickup considering that the loss of Von Bell. I think he'll be able to just plug and play. And you mentioned Zach Bond. They also lost A.J. Klein. Again, plug and play. The Warford and Ruiz thing, I don't think is getting as much attention because I do like Ruiz as a player. I had him on my board as the number 1 safety / guard prospect, and I think he's going to start on that line right away. But I do think in the beginning, you're going to find a drop-off between Warford's play and Ruiz's play. I know Warford did not necessarily have the year that many expected last year, but he is still a very Pro Bowl caliber guard, and Ruiz is just a rookie stepping in that role. So I think the offensive line is going to see a dip at least at the beginning of the year, but I think long term they needed to save the money, so I understand the move. And yeah, I mean, outside of that, there's not much else to say. The Saints are still a very good team. And I think if they just stay healthy, I think they have a very, very nice shot at being able to win this division again.
Do you think this eye surgery for Jameis will help him out?
I
I
mean,
really want to know what he was seeing.
I don't know. Was he seeing ghosts like Sam Darnold?
I
I
don't
mean,
know. It looks like he was seeing people. Maybe he just saw a person and was like, hey, I could throw it that way.
I'm colorblind, but even I can see the change of jersey colors. I mean, good grief. I don't know. I think an eye issue was not near the height problem that his interceptions were.
Oh,
I think
no.
it's a lot of decision making, and maybe him standing and sitting behind a Drew Brees will help with that. I mean, Drew Brees is one of the most accurate quarterbacks in history. So if there's anyone for you to learn behind, let it be Drew Brees. So, maybe it'll work. I think you can expect some improvement just learning and him not being in a starter's role. But yeah, I think the little eye surgery thing, it's going to take a lot more than that for him to improve on his accuracy.
Yeah, and you know what? I was just about to really back Jameis here. You know, he was given a Tampa team who hadn't really seen that much success since their most recent Super Bowl, 2002 or something like that. And he's young. You know, sometimes you just go to the wrong place and you don't get the right training or anything. And now he signs with the Saints. He's under Drew Brees, under Sean Payton. Maybe he can hone his abilities and stuff. And then he comes out with this statement saying that he's potentially Hall of Fame caliber. Did you see that
Oh my goodness.
with his stats? Like, dude, what? You had to have some sort of self awareness here. And not only that, you're actually behind someone who's a Hall of Famer, first ballot Hall of Famer. Come on, man. You're not
There's
making it easy to root for you.
there's a term that I like to use that I think works very well with Jameis Winston. And the term is empty calories. And what empty calories are is when you make a bunch of mistakes very early in a football game and you get down 31-7, and then you have to pass the ball an extreme amount just to try to play catch up. So yeah, if you're having all these 300, 400-yard passing games, sure, that's good statistic wise, but it's because you threw 3 interceptions in the first half and screwed your team over, and you have to throw the ball over the yard to try to catch up. Like, no, you're not a Hall of Fame quarterback right now. You have arm talent, but your accuracy is so atrocious that I can't even really call you an average quarterback at the moment. There's a reason you're not starting on a team right now. So quit thinking you're all that. Try to learn behind Drew Brees and get better.
Maybe he just thinks that, you know, the ball didn't fall on the ground and someone caught it, that it's a reception. It's all good, right?
Man, if that's the case, he probably had the most completions in NFL history last year. Well, moving forward, the other guy that the Saints lost was Teddy Bridgewater. And he decided to go and sign a deal with the Carolina Panthers to become their new starting quarterback. So I think that's a nice way to move into the Panthers, who are a team that seems, with their new head coach and Matt Rule, seem to be rebuilding a little bit. But when you look at their roster, they're not a bad team based off the talent level. If we look at their additions, obviously, as I said, they got Teddy Bridgewater. They added Robbie Anderson from the Jets. They also got Eli Apple, who has been around multiple teams, the Giants, the Saints. They got him. And in the draft, I think they had a very nice draft. They got Derek Brown early, who I think was the best defensive tackle in the draft. I think he'll make an immediate impact. They got Yetur Gross Matos. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeeter.
They got him in the second. I think that was a great pickup. With a lot of the defensive line and edge players that they lost, such as Mario Addison, Jerry McCoy, Dontari Poe, Vernon Butler, Bruce Irvin. They lost a lot of those guys. So I think early on in this draft, Matt Rule and the Panthers were like, okay, we're going to get two big impact defensive linemen to help rejuvenate that defensive line. I think they did that successfully there. A couple other guys, they got Jeremy Chin, safety, and Troy Pride, the linebacker. I don't think Pride is – I think he's good, but I don't think he's going to be able to fill that hole that Luke Kuechly left in his retirement.
It's pretty big shoes to fill.
You're completely right. And that, I think, is the one big issue I have right now with the Panthers is – I mean, that to me is their biggest loss. You know, they also lost James Bradbury, Greg Olsen, and, you know, everyone else I had previously mentioned. But I think Luke Kuechly is the biggest. He was by far the leader and the quarterback of that defense. He's gone now, and they didn't really add anybody to replace him in free agency. And in the draft, they waited until Troy Pride to get a linebacker. So I think that middle of that defense is going to be exposed a lot. But, I mean, outside of that, this is a team that I don't think they're going to necessarily compete because they're already in a very tough NFC South division. But I think they're going to be still competitive. What do you think?
Yeah, I mostly agree. Most of their signings were all offensive. And then you see in the draft, they didn't draft an entire offensive piece. It was all defense. They had two defensive tackles, the defensive end, got a couple safeties, got some linebackers, no offense. And then Luke Kuechly retiring, that's just such a big position to fill. And it just really seems like they're just desperately trying to fill in all these pieces from Luke Kuechly to Dontari Poe. And it seems like it's almost kind of like a middle rebuild, right? So it's almost like they're trying to put on a new tire on like a flaming car, pretty much. Like there's no, it's not exactly a reset, but they're not in position to like kind of make any kind of like playoff push or anything. But there's still a couple of good pieces there, right? Like you have the emergence of DJ Moore, who's looking to be a potential wide receiver one this upcoming year. Curtis Samuel is showing some promise. They do sign Robbie Anderson, whom I haven't really think he's met his potential, but I do think that he's a guy with a lot of speed that take things off the top, and it gives more room for DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel underneath. And then obviously you still have CMC, who they gave a new contract. They made him the highest paid running back in the league. He's going to get $16 million a year. He's got a 4-year contract, $64 million. $30 million is guaranteed. Now, usually paying a running back this much, I would say it's just awful, right? The lifespan is not there. But one of the kicks to this contract is the team can opt out of it after 3 years, which I think works pretty well for both sides. You know, CMC is going to get his money, but in the case things go wrong, he only has to be there for 3 years before they can kick him. So I think that's a win-win. But I do think the Panthers did Cam Newton wrong. Cam has brought them a bunch of success, you know, whether like his personality or not. He loves Carolina, and Carolina loves him. And he brought them to a Super Bowl. He was an MVP. And you pretty much rob him of a lot of his offseason time to search for a new team, right? So it's not until March 17th, which is a month after the Super Bowl, and you know, not long before free agency was about to begin. And then you announce that he's allowed to seek trades now. Okay, cool. You know, it's pretty late, but you know, I guess I'll start searching, right? 1 week later, the 24th of March, they cut him. You didn't give him any time for this guy who's brought some sort of prosperity to you. It was dirty, and I think Carolina really owes something to Cam in some sort of way. What do you think about that?
I agree. I think they could have handled it a lot better. And as you said, say what you want about what you think of his skill set, what you think of, you know, his demeanor, his personality, but he did take the Panthers a 15-1 record one year, send them to the Super Bowl. And he has had a lot of unfortunate injuries recently in the past few years. Really, ever since that Super Bowl when he got knocked around by the Broncos, it seems just ever since then he's been hurt and riddled by injuries. But I definitely think he could have gone out a better way. He's like you said, he's done a lot for that team. It's disappointing. I'm hoping now eventually he can hitch on to a team, but I'm honestly shocked he hasn't been picked up yet, especially with teams that could use a backup or even starting quarterback. I mean, a lot of the word was that maybe the Patriots could sign him. But at this point, unless something drastic happens in the offseason where some starting quarterback tears their ACL or something, I don't see him really latching on with the team, which is unfortunate because I think a healthy Cam Newton can absolutely be a franchise quarterback still. I think he can send a team when he's got the pieces around him to the playoffs and be able to make some noise there. But yeah, I'm with you. I wish the Panthers would have handled it better. I think Cam Newton deserved more, and hopefully he still has a bright future ahead of him.
What is with this contract with the coach who's never coached in the NFL ever? He's coming from Baylor. He's on a contract for 7 years, $62 million. What? I don't understand what it is with these kind of commitments to these coaches. Like he's just not proven it all. He hasn't done anything. Like even Kyle Shanahan, who's a big offensive mind, right? You know, his contract wasn't exactly a long one or anything. He didn't have like a long leash or anything, but then he proved himself and then he got the extension. But you just throw out this huge contract to someone that's unproven, and it's not just a big contract. It's the sixth highest paid coach in the NFL. Just let that sink in. 32 head coaches. This guy has never coached at any position in the NFL. Is now the sixth highest out of those 32. I don't
Yeah,
understand it.
I'm with you. I was shocked when you read me those numbers. I was very shocked. The one thing I will give credit to Matt Rule is that with every place he has been, he has improved the program. When he was with Temple, after the first year, maybe two, that following year, they had a very good record. I think they went to a bowl game. He went to Baylor the first year, not good. Second year, I think he went to the Sugar Bowl. But again, that's just a college game, and the NFL is a completely different ball game. No pun intended. Um, so I don't understand the commitment to a guy that, like you said, has never coached anywhere in the NFL, as far as I know. So, I mean, he must have had a very good interview, I guess. He, I mean, usually we like to talk about, players living up to their contracts. I want to see Matt Rule live up to his contract. Uh, Apparently, the front office saw something in Matt Rule that they really, really liked. And man, I'd like to know what it is because I'm with you. I'm shocked about that contract.
Maybe we'll get to see it, but given this whole offseason situation, it's not happening this year. I'll say that much.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Well, he at least has a coaching job for a couple of years, guarantee, right? Unlike the Falcons, who Dan Quinn, who was already on the hot seat, and he was potentially threatened with losing his job last year, still has his job, but this is his last year to get it straight. I I like Dan Quinn. I think he's a good head coach, but I ultimately think he's just going to lose his job this year. While the defense hasn't exactly followed over from his time with the Legion of Boom, they did address some of the defense in the draft. They took with their first pick the cornerback AJ Terrell, whom by most wasn't rated as the top corner, and I myself am not too big of a fan of the pick. But it is a position of need. It was a reach, but I guess you did need it, so good on you. The next pick they took the defensive tackle Marlon Davidson, who I actually like, and I get he gets to sit alongside Grady Jarrett and Dante Fowler, but there was plenty of other people at different positions in need that I would have rather had over Marlon Davidson. But my favorite pick that they did have that wasn't even on the defensive side was the hybrid center and guard Matt Hennessy from Temple, who I think he can learn really well under Alex Mack and provide a much needed plug for just a bad O-line that the Falcons have. They tried to beef up the defense with the signings of Dante Fowler to a 3-year, $48 million deal. And they also got a defensive end from Miami. They traded a 2021 seventh for him, that's really good, actually. You have I wouldn't even think he's like proven by any means, but solid backup, maybe. I'll take that for a seventh. And they also signed the linebacker Deion Buchanan. Now, on the offensive side, they get Todd Gurley to a 1-year contract now. They didn't re-sign Devontae Freeman, and for whatever reason, they didn't trade him last year to any team that was looking for a running back. That's a whole nother issue itself. But you get Todd Gurley, who just passed his physical just this past week, thankfully. They do sign him to a 1-year contract, so it's not bad. I'll take that. They also picked up the 5th-year option for Brian Hill as his backup. Now, one of the biggest offseason moves that the Falcons made was the trade with the Ravens. They traded their second-round pick that they got from the Patriots for Mohamed Sanu, and they got Hayden Hurst out of it. I personally, not too big of a fan of it, but he does feel an immediate hole that Austin Hooper left. And with the recent reports that Matt Ryan loves him, it makes me feel better. As far as losses go, they do cut Devontae Freeman, whom just wasn't like his old self anymore. He hasn't ran for over 1,000 yards since 2016. And they also cut Vic Beasley and Desmond Trufant. Big deal. I mean, I guess maybe French starters, but they haven't lived up to their potential at all. Thankfully, the only bright spot on the defense has been Deion Jones, and he broke the pick-6 record that was previously set by Deion Sanders and Kevin Mathis in the franchise. That's one good thing about the defense. But it's hard being a Falcons fan and looking at how much potential this team has, and every year it's just the same old story. You underperform, you disappoint. The team is riddled with injuries at one point or another, and you don't perform up to your expectations. I'm done having any kind of like hope, to be honest. I think the window is closed, and I'm not looking forward to the next couple of years being a Falcons fan, to be honest.
Dang.
That's a lot, right?
All right, so I'm gonna try to be hopeful, or at least positive, with their off season. We'll see how this goes. So I'm gonna start with the losses. So the two big cuts were Desmond Trufant and Devontae Freeman. Freeman, I expected with his countless injuries, and even when they signed him to the contract way back after the Super Bowl year, I wasn't a fan of it. I didn't think he was worth that much money. It was very risky, and we see what happened with that. So he was cut. Trufant has been one of the most hated Falcons for such a long time, and to be honest, I've never understood it. Trufant has battled some injuries, but when he has been on the field, he has been a very good corner. Even last year, Pro Football Focus near the second half of the season when the Falcons started to really play, they went like 6-2 down the stretch. He was rated as their number 8 corner in the entire league, and he has been rated as a top corner for several years. I think I could understand cutting him due to the fact that they needed money, but I think that that hole is going to be very, very large and noticeable early on, and I think it's something that people aren't really thinking much about. Even with this AJ Terrell pick, which I have honestly groaned on a little bit, I'll be honest. I was very upset when they first picked him because to me, I had him as like my 5th or 6th rated corner in the draft. Late first, early second, more so in the second. But when I looked at more tape of him and saw what he brought, he was honestly a perfect fit for what Dan Quinn wants to run with his defense. And I think scheme fit was one of the biggest things. And to be honest, I think that possibly was also impacted by the COVID-19 crisis going on right now, because if you want to try to find a guy and mold him into your scheme, that's going to be a lot tougher than a guy that kind of already understands your scheme that could be more of a plug and play. And that's what I think AJ Terrell can be in this Falcons defense. The Marlon Davidson pick, I honestly wanted AJ Epinesa, but the more that I see Marlon Davidson in terms of his film and his interviews, which are very awesome if you haven't seen some of them, one of his interviews that I think you might find very funny is he said that he likes football because it's the one time where he can punch a guy in the mouth and not get the police called on him, which is honestly a dog mentality that I think this Falcons defense so desperately needs. I thought we needed to get an upgrade at defensive line. I kind of would have preferred an edge rusher, which Davidson played in Auburn, but he, based off his size, is definitely going to be a guy that's going to kick inside and play defensive tackle. And I think him next to Grady Jarrett is going to be a very nice combination. So I really like that pick, to be honest.
I'm just worried that his success might have came from a better tackle, Derek Brown.
See, I can understand that to a degree, but looking at his film, you can see that he's beating people left and right. And I will say, because of Derek Brown was doubled a lot, which means
he was taking a lot of attention.
Which means Marlon Davidson was on one guy for most of the time. But going into the NFL, Marlon Davidson is not going to get doubled. Grady Jarrett is, or Dante Fowler is. So you got two prime pass rushers that are going to be having the focus, which means Marlon Davidson is going to be on those one-on-one opportunities. And from what I've seen with his technique, which is already pretty sound for a rookie coming in, I think he's going to be able to contribute right away. I don't think he's going to be a guy that lights up the sack chart because I don't think he's that type of guy, but I definitely think he's going to get pressure on the quarterback, which I think is what we need. Matt Hennessy, I agree with you as well. I really like that pick. I think it is a future pick, a forward-thinking pick, which is honestly I really like out of Dimitrov and Quinn when they're fighting for their jobs right now, but they decided we're still going to go for the future because this is a smart pick for the organization. I really liked that. Me personally, I would prefer him not play this year and redshirt. And I know Quinn said he's going to compete for the left guard spot. I don't want him. I'll let him, sure, compete. I don't want him to win it because I want him to redshirt and just sit behind Alex Mack and learn. That way, next year, I don't expect us to sign Alex Mack back, just money purposes. So I just want him to learn behind Alex Mack, learn from one of the best to ever do it, and then next year just be able to hit the ground running at the center position. I want him to focus completely on center. Don't worry about left guard. He hasn't even played that much left guard anyways. He was more of a center main at Temple. So just focus entirely on center and move forward. But I think that's a very nice pick that they made. And going off the free agency additions that you talked about, Dante Fowler, his contract is very interesting because his first year he's not going to be making that much, but his second and third year he's making 15 and 16 million. So I think that's the only way that they could have honestly made the deal is making it so backloaded, which is risky, but you're hoping you can get a lot out of this first year, which I hope he can come in and contribute right away because Lord knows the Falcons pass rush is horrendous and they need all the help they can get.
It's just been horrendous as a franchise.
True. Todd Gurley, I've been open about this ever since I signed him. I think this is more of a PR move. I think this is to help sell tickets, which was a struggle last year. His health came back positive in terms of the records. So the doctors are saying that his knee is fine. I do think he's going to be on a bit of a pitch count, so to speak. I don't think he's going to end up carrying the ball 25, 30 times a game because I don't think that's Todd Gurley anymore.
I don't think that's just Dirk Cutter's offense. I think that helps him out a lot.
yeah, the Dirk Cutter's offense has been known to not do much at all with the running back position. But the one thing that I do think Todd Gurley will be able to do is goal line situations and just scoring when we're in the red zone. And I think he's still has the capabilities of being a good pass catching option out the backfield. So I like what they did. The issue I have still though is that there's so many question marks with this team. Like, is Keanu Neal healthy? You know? Are the
which is clearly a
corners
no.
Yeah, so will he be ready at any point, with the season? The corners, AJ Terrell, Isaiah Oliver, are they going to be able to man the outside? And then Kendall Sheffield in the slot. These are very young, unproven corners to this point. And we're pretty much throwing them out in the fire. So this is a boom or bust. And in a league that is very pass happy, they're going to get their chance to either shine or hit rock bottom quick. I'm hoping it's the former, but it's a very risky idea. Again, the pass rush has always been an issue. Hopefully Dante Fowler can help with that. We'll see. And then offensively, can Dirk Cutter just call the game better? Just use his weapons that he has. I mean, there's so much on the offense it should be a top 10 offense. And I think that's completely a top 10 offense, not like top 10 in passing and then the 30th rushing offense, like a completely balanced attack. But even on the offense, as you mentioned before, they traded a second-round pick with the Ravens for Hayden Hurst. I thought, in the sense of, the tight ends that were in this draft, Cole Kmet being the top one, whom I still didn't really like. Hayden Hurst is better than any tight end that was in this draft class. So looking at it in that sense, I like it. I still think a second-round pick is pretty rich. However, you still got several years of Hayden Hurst left with, I think, a lot of untapped potential. I think he's a very big vertical threat, and I think he'll be able to be a plug and play. And like you said, Matt Ryan loves him, so I hope that works out very well. But still, that's untapped potential. He hasn't proven much, so that's a big question mark. The offensive line is still a question mark. You got Caleb McGarry at right tackle, Chris Lindstrom at right guard. They were rookies last year. They had their moments, but can they make a big step? And Julio Jones, love him to death. He's not getting any younger. What happens if he takes a step back? I hope he doesn't. He hasn't shown it, but he's up to 31 now, I think. Matt Ryan's not getting any younger. Calvin Ridley, I don't think we've seen the best out of Calvin Ridley yet. Can he come back healthy, and can he contribute right away? So there's a bunch of question marks on this team. I think most people would agree the Falcons have a very talented roster. But how many times have we said on this podcast already, talent doesn't win you football games?
The motto of just being an Atlanta Falcon is just that shoulda, coulda, the potential is there. All of it is there. It just does not come together.
Yeah, it's disappointing. The Falcons are a team that you think has all the right weapons. Can it just come together? But, we'll see how that works. And I honestly think that that's a question we can ask for this last team that we have to talk about, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who made the biggest free agent pickup in the entire offseason. That is picking up Tom Brady on a 2-year, $50 million deal. That was pretty much the highlight of their free agency. And quite frankly, I think that's all they really needed to do. This Buccaneers team, offensively, looks scary, honestly. With Chris Godwin, with Mike Evans, O.J. Howard, Rob Gronkowski now, an improved offensive line with the addition of Tristan Wirfs, and now Tom Brady calling the signals. Josh, I'm not looking forward to that.
Can I just go ahead and wave the white flag here? Like, mercy, please. We got to face a Drew Brees and Tom Brady a total of 4 times. Just Just let this end already.
Yeah, man, I don't know. And it would be one thing if like they added Tom Brady and then the rest of their offseason was like, all right, that's they didn't do anything else. So, all they did was add Tom Brady, which is enough as it is. But no, they decided to also re-sign Ndamukong Suh for that defensive line. They get Antoine Winfield, who was one of my favorite safeties coming out. They got him to help that secondary. And then I
Which
think
was their biggest need.
yes, absolutely. Secondary has been their top need for a while now. And then in the third round, I think it was a little early, but I do like the prospect, Keyshawn Vaughn, running back from Vanderbilt. I really like him as a prospect. I think it was a little early, but I think at this point the Buccaneers are like, look, give everything to Brady. Everything we do now is for Brady. We got him for 2 years. They're expecting Super Bowl in these first 2 years, and they're just like, we're going to give you all the weapons you could possibly want. They also got Tyler Johnson late, which is another receiver, very talented guy that I really liked. They got him. I'm just, and they lost Carl Nassib and Bo Allen, Brashad Perriman as well, but I think Brashad Perriman, I don't think they're going to lose any sleep over that one. Defensive line depth, I think, is a little bit of an issue, but that defense is still, at least on the front seven, very good with the defensive line. The linebackers are very good. They still got Devin White there, who I think has played phenomenal ever since he came in recently, and I think he's only going to get better. Levante David is still there. My one question mark with the Buccaneers, and I think you'd probably agree, is still the secondary. The corner play and the safeties, even with Antoine Winfield there, you don't know how much of an impact he's going to make right away. But the only question mark I have for the Buccaneers is the secondary, and everything else. It just looks like they can outscore people. There's a big debate on how good is Tom Brady right now, especially after last year. I think, while I do think Tom Brady is definitely on the back nine, if he's on a back 18 at this point, if that's possible, he's very old, and I don't think he has the arm strength that he used to. But people need to understand that, like, last year when the Buccaneers went 7-9, I truly believe, had Jameis Winston not thrown 10 of his 30 interceptions, the Buccaneers are in the playoffs. Because that defense was good enough to get him in the playoffs. And I think that if he just had a slightly better decision making, I think that was a playoff team. So now, at the very minimum, you bring in a guy that maybe doesn't have the arm strength of Jameis Winston, but he can for sure throw the ball more accurately. He can read
He's
a
not going to
defense
throw it to you
way
the
better.
team.
Exactly. Not much unless you're the Titans. But he's going to be able to just play the game smarter. He's a smart quarterback. He always has been since he came out. And I think they're just going to be able to outscore people, which is something that concerns me greatly. What about you? What do you have to say about this Tampa Bay Buccaneers?
Tampa Bay, TB12. Is there really much else to say? I mean, they got the biggest possible upgrade that you could have gotten. You got the GOAT off of the free agent market. Now, I'm going to toot my own horn here. I've been saying Brady was going to leave the Patriots since they put that house up for sale. So, on that note, y'all were laughing at me before, whoever y'all are out there. I knew it. No, I didn't get the team right. That was a different part. I did want him to go to the Colts because I thought that they had just better pieces around them, like all together, like the O-line. I think they have a better overall defense, but another story, different time. Tampa Bay, here it is. The most unsuspecting part from the Tampa Bay team from this past year was just how good the run defense was. I mean, from week 10 on, they were number one run defense. And credit to Todd Bowles, who came in and reunited with Bruce Arians and put this back together. Obviously, it didn't work out with the Jets when he was the head coach, but man, what a job it took to get Tampa back to at least some sort of relevance on defense. Now, their biggest need was the back part of it with the corners and the safety. And, like you said, I don't think that just adding Winfield is going to solve everything, but this is a pretty well-rounded team. You get Tristan Wirfs to fix the tackle issue because Brady isn't gonna break anyone off. Let's just be real about that. Now, one of the biggest reasons why the defense had any kind of success last year was because of Shaquille Barrett, who was the NFL sack leader last year with 19 and a half sacks, and he broke the Tampa Bay record that was set by Warren Sapp. That's a pretty big deal. Now they do give him the franchise tag because really last year was his only year of having this much success. So hopefully he proves it and he can prove that he's worth of a contract. Like you said, they resigned Sud a 1-year deal, and oddly enough, they exercised the option for OJ Howard, which I really don't think was that much of a need. I mean, tight ends are something that are not used in Bruce Arians' offense at all, and I mean, is OJ Howard one of the biggest offensive busts in the past couple of years from the draft? Questionable, right? He was in talks to being traded last year before the end of the season, and you already had Cameron Brate, who's a solid tight end, and now you have Grunk. So you have 3 tight ends. I mean, what's the use there?
I think there's a lot of potential still with OJ Howard. And to be honest, I kind of wonder if he was partially a subject to Dirk Cutter, who never really used him since he came out. And I believe he's only had 1 year with Bruce Arians. And surely the fact that they are keeping him shows that Bruce Arians wants him to be used. But I also think that this is another part of that give Tom Brady everything. He's literally got all the weapons he could possibly want. One of the best wide receiver duos ever, and now, like you said, they're 3 deep at tight end. So, I mean, I still like OJ Howard. I think he can still get utilized very, very well, especially as a vertical threat. We'll see how that works with Tom Brady. But yeah, I was on the board of him being traded. I firmly expected it. But at this point, they're just like, hey, at worst, we have a very good third tight end in case something happens. So we'll see.
With that being said, there was recent rumors that Bruce Arians is going to be using 2 tight end sets. Now, a team that recently switched to the 2 tight end set was the Rams last year, and it might have been too little too late, but they did have some success with it. So maybe there's a little copycat here. He does have the tight ends to do it with, and it would also help with the O-line play because getting Tristan Wirfs is a great pick, right? But that's just only one guy. So having multiple tight ends on the line is going to help out.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I believe Tristan Wirfs is probably going to play right tackle. So if that's the case, then more than likely you'll keep those tight ends on the right side to, if anything, help with him. Do some chip blocks and that type of thing. And hey, if Bruce Arians wants to run some 2 tight end sets, I have learned to not doubt Bruce Arians and an offensive mind like him. So, I mean, I hope it doesn't work for the sake of the Falcons, but I wouldn't be shocked if it did.
They also re-signed the linebacker Jason Pierre-Paul to a 2-year deal. I'm not sure we mentioned that already, but there you go.
Yeah, more pass rush help, which of course is what they need. They just need more help on defense. Just give them everybody.
They have the best new uniforms of the South. Honestly, think they're better than the Falcons.
I think there's a lot of new uniforms better than the Falcons, if I'm being honest.
At least it's not the Best Buy Rams.
The gradient, I'm like, no, guys, don't do this to me.
I saw the potential, but come on. Is there someone in the office that can say no to someone? Come on.
Like the alternate black, I saw that and I was like, can we just keep that? Can that be the uniform? That looks great. Like, what's up with the gradient stuff? Like, come
Like, your
on.
colors are black, red, and white.
You should have
Every
cool
uniform
uniforms
should
with
be
that.
good.
Yes, you should have cool uniforms with that color scheme.
But I think that's a little off topic right there. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, that was all of the NFC South. So you want to go in and start with your predictions?
Yeah, let's do that. So for me, in fourth place, I have the Carolina Panthers, a team that, as we've mentioned, I think is in a small rebuild, not a big overfledged rebuild, because I think we both agree they have a lot of talent still on this team. But I have them going 6-10, and that's mainly because the schedules that the NFC South has is gruesome, to say the least. Just away, they've got to go to the Falcons, Saints, and Buccaneers. I think they could lose all those. They've got to go to the Vikings, the Packers, and the Chiefs. I think they could lose all 6 of those games alone. And then they face the Chargers and the Redskins. Those could be toss-ups. Maybe not the Redskins. They should beat them. But outside of that. And then home schedule, again, Falcons, Saints, Buccaneers, Bears, Lions, a Broncos team that I think is very much improved, Raiders, and Cardinals. So I think it'll be a tough season just because they have a really tough schedule. So I'm going 6-10 for the Panthers in fourth place.
No way. Yes. Okay, well, I also had the Panthers going 6-10.
Wow.
Oh my god. Okay, well, wow. It's sometimes hard, when we think alike, but yeah, for ultimately the same things that you said. The defense, not the schedule is kind of tough, but I just have a hard time believing in teams this year that are losing a lot of pieces and that have new head coaches. That's going to be something that is similar with every other team this year that's in the same situation. And look, I don't think Teddy Bridgewater is a bad quarterback. I don't think he's anything above average, though. I'll say that. The one thing that will help them, though, is that he doesn't turn the ball over. He is overall an above 500 quarterback, but that was with the Vikings team. That was with the Saints team. He had a lot of help around him. And maybe that will help them win a couple games when they need them most. But yeah, 6-10. Now to go to our third team in the South, and I don't think there's going to be any surprise, but I'm going to have the Atlanta Falcons going 8-8. There is just too many questions on this team, and I think we're going to be looking at another injury-riddled year. Dan Quinn is going to be on his way out the door, and the window's closed. They're not going to be able to compete with the Saints and Tampa alone in the same division. And I honestly, even including Carolina, I have a hard time believing that the Falcons do any better than 2-4 in the division. And I think that's the best you would get out of them, at least from here. And on top of that, you have to play the Chiefs too. And the Chargers, look, the Chargers are a great team. Now, with that being said, they do have a quarterback issue and the O-line sucks, but that defense, the pieces on that defense is phenomenal. They could stop the Falcons. It hurts my soul to admit this, and I'm trying hard not being a homer and like doing a kind of coping mechanism to make it seem better than what it actually is. This might be the first year that I'm actually being truthful about the Falcons, but they're going to go 8-8.
You made a lot of good points. I also have the Falcons in third. I actually have them going 9-7.
Okay, same.
Yeah. I looked at this schedule, home and away, and you might call me crazy on a couple of things I have happening. because it's probably not going to happen. But looking at their schedule, they got the Panthers, Saints, Buccaneers at home. I think they could sweep the Panthers. The reason I have an issue with that actually happening is because Teddy Bridgewater actually has a very good record against the Falcons, and it's kind of concerning between his time mainly with the Vikings. We just can't seem to beat Teddy Bridgewater.
We also
But
can't beat the Vikings.
true. I'm betting on Julio's ability to go off against the Panthers to happen. The Saints and Buccaneers, I actually have the Falcons splitting. And the reasoning why is with the Saints, I feel like we always do. I think that's just going to happen. I actually have us winning at Saints and then winning against us at home because Debo always plays great in New Orleans. He always seems to intercept Drew Brees at the perfect time or something. So I'm betting on that happening again. And then, again, Julio Jones and Matt Ryan go off against the Buccaneers. I still think they can take advantage of that secondary. It might be two giant shootouts, but I think it can happen. I think the Falcons can beat the Bears, the Lions, and the Raiders. They got the Broncos at home. That was supposed to be the London game. I think the Broncos are going to be I think they're a dark horse team, honestly, to make the playoffs. And Dan Quinn is atrociously bad against the AFC. So I'm going to give the Broncos that one. Their opening game against the Seahawks, Falcons-Seahawks always seems to be good. But to this point, Dan Quinn has actually done fairly well against the Seahawks. So I'll give them that one in a close one. And then when we go away, they got the Vikings and the Packers and the Chiefs. I'm gonna say they lose against the Vikings because we always do. There ain't no way I'm picking the Chiefs or I'm picking the Falcons over the Chiefs. Not happening. The Packers, I think, could be an interesting game. It's in Lambeau, which concerns me, but I definitely don't think the Packers are going to be as good as they were last year. And I think the Falcons could keep that competitive. Could they win it? Maybe not, but it could be close. I think they can beat the Chargers, even though I do completely agree with you. That's a better team than their record showed, and they could stop the Falcons. And I think at this point, it just seems what type of Falcons team they are. And then you got the Cowboys, who it depends on what Cowboys team we get. So based off their schedule, I'm with you. I think they're going to be close to 500. I got them 9-7, just a little bit above. Is that enough for the final wild card spot? Probably not. I think the bigger question is that good enough for Dan Quinn to keep his job? I don't know if it is. It's going to be close, honestly. But yeah, it's third. I think it's just the fact that their schedule is ridiculously tough and they're in a very, very tough division.
Well, oddly
again,
enough, it actually seems promising the way I had it go. At the end is where I think it's where it all derails. I do have them going 8-5 up until they have to go Tampa, Chiefs, Tampa.
Yeah, that's a brutal. And I agree. I think they could go 8-5. I think the difference is I have them taking one of those Buccaneers games.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that final three could be the difference between the playoffs and not. So next up we have second place. And personally, I've got the Buccaneers. I have them going 10-6. So the reasoning why I have them going 10-6 and not some people have them going like 12-4. I think that's a little much. I don't think they have the secondary to go that well. Their schedule is also very tough. I think they'll sweep the Panthers. I think they'll split with the Saints, split with the Falcons. They've got the Packers, Vikings, and Chiefs as well, but all of those are at home. So I think they could I got them beating the Vikings because I think their run defense is going to be able to stop them.
Mm-hmm.
I think Aaron Rodgers versus Tom Brady could be a great game. I think I've got the edge to Aaron Rodgers in that one. Just a close game, but I'm just going to give it to the Packers. At home, they also face the Chiefs. Yeah, Chiefs all the way. Chargers, Bucks, And then the Rams, which I think could be an interesting game, but I'm going to give the Buccaneers that one. And in the away game, the one that I think is going to be the difference between the division and a wild card for the Buccaneers is when they go, I think it's week 3, they go to Mile High Stadium against the Broncos. And I'm going to give that one to the Broncos because Tom Brady just doesn't seem to do well in Mile High Stadium for whatever reason. And I think even though it's not with the Patriots, I think that continues. I think that could be a defining game that the Buccaneers lose that can cost them the division. So I have them going 10-6, second place in the NFC South.
Okay, so I have the Saints going 11-5 as the second place team in the NFC South. They returned a lot of their players. They had a small draft, but they drafted pretty well. They made some decent signings in the offseason. And really, other than Tampa in the division, who's going to stop them? I understand that sometimes the Falcons do take one away from them, but this team is just too loaded. I have a problem seeing the Falcons being able to take one away, to be honest. I think they sweep the Panthers, and they split with Tampa. And I even think that they're going to take the first game in week 1. And then that just leaves Tampa. And I'm one of those people that is going big on Tampa. I'm going to have them go 13-3.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Unlike what I've say about these other teams that have big switches or big changes, completely understandable. But you bring in Tom Brady, the GOAT, the smartest quarterback to ever play, possibly. You give him all these tools. I mean, really, when has Tom ever had the amount of weapons that he has right now? He's had Wes Welker before. Cool, nice little slot receiver. His best weapon has been Randy Moss, and even then, they didn't get a Super Bowl out of that. That was the infamous 18-1. I just I have a hard time thinking that any team can actually compete with Tampa, at least as part of the NFC itself. One of the losses I do have would be against Kansas City because I do believe that they can beat up that secondary. But between Tampa and New Orleans, I don't see Drew taking the top off of Tampa. I don't think he has the arm strength anymore. I think most of his passes are just slant passes to Michael Thomas, and I don't think that's going to be able to compete with Tom Brady throwing to Chris Godwin, Michael Evans, any of their 3 tight ends. And that's why I have Tampa taking this division at 13-3.
See, I think the Buccaneers just still have too many question marks for me to be able to say that they're going to be this elite record. I still have question marks about the secondary. The offensive line to me is not complete. And even on offense, how there's a chance that Tom Brady is not nearly as good as we think he is. And last year was the beginning of a downfall of him. Maybe Father Time has finally caught up. Who knows? We don't know yet. And with the tight ends, again, OJ Howard, unproven, really. Will he finally do something? And then Gronkowski, we haven't seen him play in a year. Is he still the same Gronk? We don't know. There's a lot of question marks I have. It's funny, though. I do have the Saints going 11-5, but I have that being enough to win the division. I think the NFC South is kind of going to beat themselves up a bit, which is going to knock the record down a little bit. And with the Saints, I think comparing them to the Buccaneers, I think the Saints have the better O-line. I think the Saints have the better running game, which I think is very important. I think the Saints have the better overall defense. Maybe not the better run defense, but I think the pass defense definitely makes up for it. So it's going to be competitive for sure. This division is, especially between the Saints and the Buccaneers, I think we would both agree is going to be very, very competitive. And looking at the Saints and their schedule, the teams that I think that could beat them, I think the 49ers could beat them. They face the Packers and the Vikings. They could take one of those. I don't know if they'll take both of them. Chiefs, of course, and the Falcons and Buccaneers splitting. They got the Eagles away. That could be a good game, but I think it'll be close. But yeah, I'm gonna give it to the Saints to once again win the division for what feels like the third or fourth time in a row at this point.
Which is kind of unprecedented since it seemed like that there was always a swap as far as the division winner for a good long bit.
Yeah, you're right. I definitely think whether it be my prediction, your prediction, or most likely some completely other route, I think both these teams will end up in the playoffs. Because I think both of them are very talented. I think if all goes well, I think both could be two of the top teams in the entire NFC. And to be honest, I think we could easily see, again, I'm not on the big Buccaneers hype train, but let's say their hype train is rolling and they are doing as good as most people expect. We could see either the Saints, Buccaneers, or 49ers. I think those will be the top three teams competing to reach the Super Bowl this upcoming year.
I would really love to see, as much as I would hate to see it as a Falcons fan, I would love to see the Brady and Breeze NFC Championship.
Oh, no.
And that's just the Falcon and you saying no. But come on, this is two
no,
of the greatest to ever play the position.
No.
They were in the same division.
No, you want to know what I want to see happen? No, you want to know what I want to see happen?
What?
I want to see Buccaneers 49ers in the NFC Championship. Jimmy G versus Tom Brady. And I would love to see Jimmy G win. That'd be hilarious.
You want to see a Hall of Famer versus an average quarterback?
And I want to watch that average quarterback win, yes.
All right, if you say so.
But for real, like if those did, if that did happen, the 49ers, I think, are still going to be heavy on the run game. And then the Buccaneers still have this elite run defense. Big part of your defense versus the big part of their offense. Who wins? I think that'd be a very interesting matchup.
Well, with that, I think that will do for today's episode of JJ Talks.
Yes, we got through the most grueling division I think we have to go through when we have to gush about how awesome the other teams are compared to ours. But that is normal life as a Falcons fan.
Just constant disappointment.
Are
you a fan of a Georgia team? Disappointment.
That's why at least I'm glad I'm an Alabama fan. I've got championships. I ain't got to be a Georgia fan.
Yeah, we got the 95 World Series.
I don't want to talk baseball right now. Tough times. Anyways, thank you all for tuning in. Josh, would you like to tell our listeners where they can find us?
I certainly would. You can find us on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. You can also find us on Facebook under JJ Talks. You can find us on Instagram and Twitter at JJ Talks Pod.
All right. Thank you all for, again, tuning in to another episode of JJ Talks, and we will see all y'all